Welcome to Felony Friday, a presentation of the Lions of Liberty podcast. Here is your host, John Odermatt.
Felons, friends, and freedom lovers, welcome back to another edition of Felony Friday, a weekly show right here on the Lions of Liberty podcast. Felony Friday, it's one of three shows we have here on Lions of Liberty, the OG Variety podcast. There are a lot of libertarian, maybe not a lot, I don't know how many there are. There's a few libertarian variety show podcasts out there. We were the first one. We were the original. We were the trailblazers. Everyone else is a follower. We are still the best. And what makes us a variety show is having more than one show. So one show is Felony Friday, this show right here. A second show is our Monday program, our flagship program, our longest running program, hosted by Mark Claire, your shining beacon of liberty, interviewing leaders in the libertarian movement. On Wednesday, we have Electric Liberty Land, hosted by Brian McWilliams. It's your weekly punch to the mouth of culture, comedy, and liberty. And be sure to subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a single show. And also, it helps us, helps the algorithm, helps us reach more people. I don't know how it works, but if you subscribe on Apple Podcasts and leave a comment and a review and all that stuff, for some reason, they put our podcast in front of more people when they search for liberty or they search for politics, I don't know, or criminal justice reform. It comes up. So do that. It helps us. Thank you. Today's show is super, super important, and I don't want to beat around the bush. I want to get right to it. My guest today, we're going to be talking about the Schaeffer Cox case. Jordan Page has written a song about the Schaeffer Cox case, and he's on today's show along with Angela Clemmons. And we're going to be talking about that song, going to be talking about some updates in the case. We're also going to review the case for those who are not familiar with it. I also linked to my previous episode where I talked about this case. That was episode 160. This show notes page is going to have a lot of stuff on it. We're going to link to where you can buy the song, which will then contribute to the Schaeffer's Angels. That's the legal defense fund for Schaeffer Cox. And you can find the show notes page at lionsofliberty.com/FF167. This episode will be run entirely commercial free. And that's it. I just ask you to obviously stick around, listen to the whole show. I will be playing at one point during the show, in the second half of the show, the actual song, The Persecution of Schaeffer Cox by Jordan Page. And on the YouTube version, you can see the video. So if you only listen to the old podcast on your podcatcher, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Lions of Liberty, and check out the video as well. And this entire show is video. So if you want to see our beautiful faces, be sure to do that. Let's get rolling into today's episode. My guests today on Felony Friday are Jordan Page and Angela Clemmons. They are here today to discuss the Schaeffer Cox case and also to promote Jordan's new song, which is about the Schaeffer Cox case. It was just released. And if you guys remember, longtime listeners of this show, not even long time, even 10 episode long listeners of this show, remember back on episode 160 where I had on Jacob Schreffler and Brian Christie, and we walked through the details of this case. And we're going to be probably doing a little deeper dive. Angela is very closely involved with this case and can provide some unique insight, being the head of the Schaeffer's Angels Foundation. And Jordan, of course, very close to this case as well, a strong advocate for Schaeffer Cox with writing this song. So very interested in getting the perspectives on this and helping to raise the alarm, helping to let people know really about this injustice. So I'll introduce you guys one at a time. First, Jordan, welcome to Felony Friday.
Well, thanks for having us on, John. It's great to be here. Last time I was on Lions of Liberty, it was with Mark, so it's really nice to get to talk to you. And I talked to Mark a little bit about Schaeffer when I did my last interview because I was promoting another song for Lavoy Finicum, the rancher that was killed by the feds 3 years ago, and we talked about that, and then the Schaeffer song and video were forthcoming. They were imminent, and so I'm glad that we're back on with you to talk about it.
Yeah, your story of how you came to Liberty, it completely blew me away. And I got to say, man, when I hear your song, I hadn't listened to a lot of your work up until that point, but since that interview, I've really gotten into it. Your song Pendulum, it gives me goosebumps, man. That song's awesome. So I was very glad that Mark had you on.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Also want to introduce Angela to Felony Friday. Welcome.
Thank you.
And maybe we could just start out with you guys giving a sort of a brief overview of your involvement in this case, and then we can go into the details of what actually happened here, what the injustice is. And maybe we start off with Angela speaking to exactly how you're involved.
Well, I came to know of Schaeffer almost 3 years ago, and have a big heart for him. It was a God thing, and I just got involved and eventually started Schaeffer's Angels, a 501c4 nonprofit to help raise awareness for political prisoners.
And so that was 3 years ago. And so how long has Schaeffer been in prison for now?
He's been in prison for 8 years. So would you like for me to tell more of his story right now?
Let's hold off on that for 1 minute, and I just want to get Jordan. So what drew you into this case? What spoke to you to get you involved?
Well, John, last year in June, I was performing at an event called the Red Pill Expo, and someone came up to me and handed me a book. I'll show you. The Lost Lyrics of Schaeffer Cox. You can get this book on Amazon. This is 60 songs written by a political prisoner while in a black site prison. And I had heard Schaeffer's name, a number of times in the past, but never looked into it. I sing about and write about and fight for so many different things that it's like one more thing I just didn't have the bandwidth for. But I knew his name. I know that's a terrible thing to say, but I'm just being honest. And it just didn't. I didn't know anything about it. And I read this book, and it just had a profound impact on me. It broke my heart, I went and I read all I could about Schaeffer. I went to his website, freeschaeffer.com, and I read about his case. I watched the documentaries. I familiarized myself. I went and contacted a friend who I knew Schaeffer and was in communication with him, asked how I could get involved. She suggested I write a song for him, and I thought that was a great idea, and I could definitely do that. And then, one thing led to another. She introduced me to Angela and Schaeffer's Angels, and Angela helped to get the song produced and the music video produced, and here we are. And now we're doing this marketing campaign together to raise awareness for Schaeffer, for his case, for the injustice that was done to him and his family, and to talk about the recent updates in his case that could potentially set him free. And it's all about getting the word out there and drumming up support for him and for his legal expenses, because those are considerable, and that's what's going to get him out.
And we're obviously going to come back to this song. We're going to play it during this episode. We'll play it in the audio version if you're listening on iTunes or whatever you listen to for the podcast. But also there'll be a video version, and we'll plug in the video version of the song as well. So be sure to watch this on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, you want to see the video, come find us on YouTube. But before we do that, let's get for people who haven't heard of Schaeffer Cox, for people who are listening out there, what are these guys talking about? What is this injustice? Who is Schaeffer Cox? Maybe Angela, if you could just give us an overview, or get as detailed as you need to communicate the story. But what happened with the Schaeffer Cox story? What happened with this case? How did he end up in a black site prison?
Well, Schaeffer Cox is a political prisoner. He's being held in one of two black site prisons that we know about, called Communication Management Units in Terre Haute, Indiana. It's basically a unit for human torture. He was targeted in Alaska for speaking up against corruption, child molesters, and drug trafficking. He was naming names, and the more popular he got, the more he was a threat to the authorities. So that really got him on the radar to be targeted, to kind of railroad him into a crime. Schaeffer Cox has never committed a crime in his entire life. So they made one up. And like your sign says, no victim, no crime. They couldn't find a crime to charge him with. So so they charged him with conspiracy, which means no crime was committed on his part. For 2 years, the FBI sent in 2 separate informants. One of them is a known criminal that ran drugs for the Hells Angels. During that 2 years, their goal was to entrap him, to try to get him to agree to violence. During that time, he never, not one time, agreed to violence. Even his life was threatened, his child's life was threatened, his family's life was threatened, and he still did not agree to violence.
Can you get in just real quickly while we're on that topic of the FBI agents? So what types of threats were they making, and what type of violent acts were they trying to get him to carry out?
Yeah, they were trying to get him. So when the FBI filed a fake report, a false accusation of child neglect on his child, the FBI informants would say, "Yeah, let's go storm the building and shoot, go on a shooting spree," so things like that. And he's like, no. And one of his famous quotes that Jordan put in the video is, "If they come for me, I'm not going to pull a Rambo, I'm going to pull a Gandhi." And that's just a good example of, he was about peace. He wanted peace. He wanted his family to live in peace. At one point, the FBI informant, Bill Fulton, got so angry that he would not agree to violence that he pulled a throat on one of Schaeffer's friends named Les Serby, right in front of Schaeffer and Schaeffer's child. So
he pulled a what?
A knife on his throat.
Oh.
He put a knife to his friend's throat, because he wanted to incite violence. And even at that point, Schaeffer still would not be provoked to violence. So they eventually did bring him in on charges of conspiracy and solicitation. Those were the two long charges. It was a state case, and the state of Alaska was able to, Robert John was the attorney, really great attorney. He was able to play those tapes for the judge and jury, and the case was thrown out because it was obvious there was no case.
Mm-hmm.
Well, while he was still in prison, the federal government came in to try him in federal court, which they are completely out of jurisdiction to try him. They have no jurisdiction to try most crimes, including conspiracy or solicitation. But they do it anyway, and they couldn't find a judge willing to hear his case, so they brought one out of retirement who was hard of hearing, and that judge ordered that the tapes that proved his innocence could not be played in federal court. So he was convicted to 26 years for a crime that never happened.
Yeah, so the banning of exculpatory evidence, which is, I mean, that's common in Schaeffer's case. I mean, I remember the similar things happening in Ross Ulbricht's case.
Right.
Seems to be a go-to for the feds. And this is it Bill Fulton? Is that the one agent's name?
Yeah, that was one of the informants' name.
Informants.
Not an FBI. Yeah.
He wrote a book about this, right?
He did write a book. And there's a current lawsuit for defamation of character because there are so many lies in that book. Mm-hmm. So there is a pending lawsuit for defamation of character for Schaeffer.
So Jordan, when you're learning about this case, and you held up the book before that you read, Schaeffer's lyrics that he wrote, the lyrics of the song, are they Schaeffer's lyrics incorporated? Are they lyrics you wrote and were inspired by, or how did that come together?
Well, I started writing the song, and I decided I wanted to look through the book again and see if there were any lyrics that would work, because it's all first person, and the song is a first person narrative. It's called The Persecution of Schaeffer Cox. Mm-hmm. And in the end, I used about 3 lines from a couple different songs that he had written and incorporated them into the song. so that to honor him, and also to make him a co-author, so that I could direct, half of the proceeds of the song right to the foundation to help with the legal expenses. So anytime someone downloads the song through iTunes or Amazon or Google Play or CD Baby or what have you, half of that download price immediately goes to the foundation. So we're trying to really get the song sales going, because that's going to be an ongoing fundraiser. I'm also donating a portion of my proceeds from it as well, but at least 50% is guaranteed to go right to the foundation, and I'm working directly with Angela on that. And so there were several lines. One was, I'm just trying to change my fate. I think the next line was, I pray to God I'm not too late. Mm-hmm. And or am I too late? I think, and I said, dear God, I'm not too late. I'm driving a stake in the ground spiritually, saying that we're not too late and we're going to get him out. And one of my favorite lines in the song was one of Schaeffer's, which was, I was made for greater things. I was made for greater things, and dungeons have made many kings. And
love that.
I think that's such a great line, and it just worked so beautifully in the last chorus, which is kind of a climactic moment. And I've been communicating with Schaeffer over very heavily monitored emails and through core links, and but I send the lyrics, of course, and I went through the song and just described to him in detail in words how the music goes, what the feeling is like, so just to give him some idea of what it sounded like. But then I was very excited to get a call from him for the first time about 3 weeks ago, and I was able to sing it for him over the phone with my guitar, and it was a really beautiful moment, because you got to remember, like, Schaeffer's been in like some of the worst prisons in the world, and where it's just brutality and violent, and you have to be hard as nails to survive. And this is from a Gandhi-like person, right? Like, this man does not belong in a cage, but he has become kind of a hardened person, having to go through this. Still keeping his soul intact, but to survive, he has to be pretty tough to survive in there. So he says to me that after I played it, he could hear my kids like playing in the background, and he says, that he had lost his ability to cry like years ago, and listening to that song while hearing my kids playing in the background in the distance, it reminded him that there is still a real world out there beyond the walls of the CMU, and that he felt like he could cry again after hearing that. Wow. So like, that's one of those moments, one of those ultimate moments that you'll just never forget, and it has a profound impact on you. And it certainly wasn't lost on me, and I'll never let go of that moment. And it just kind of strengthened my resolve to make this work and to spread his name and tell the story of his case. I have a platform myself that I can use to communicate a message to the masses, and that's what we're trying to do. Ultimately, John, this is an innocent man who was moved to a black site prison. Number one, during his first case, it was moved to Washington from Alaska, so that none of his witnesses could testify on his behalf. Talk about getting railroaded. He was railroaded at every turn. This was about shutting him down, silencing his voice, locking him in a cell, and throwing away the key. They ended up sending him to this place in Terre Haute, Indiana, which has like a vast majority of the population there are Middle Eastern extremists. Mm-hmm. It's one of like 5 Christians at this place. There are murders taking place in this prison. That the prison is trying to cover up. There was someone decapitated there just a few months ago, right? Right, and Schaeffer witnessed that. He and his few allies in this unit were together praying with a Bible and singing hymns, and they were happened upon by a superior force of other inmates who grabbed one of these guys, tied his hands behind his back, and cut his head off with wire with a homemade garrote. And right in front of Schaeffer, then they grabbed another guy and they stabbed him 12 times and cut his throat. Miraculously, that guy survived. I don't know how. And then Schaeffer and his buddies were able to stop it somehow. The guards went and hid in a room. They locked the door and waited for the SWAT team to mobilize, which took like 15 minutes. So just imagine yourself with your hands tied behind your back, getting your head cut off slowly over 15 minutes. Schaeffer saw this with his own eyes. He said he was close enough to smell the blood. So this prison was trying to suppress this information. And I'm sorry to burden your soul with that information and your listeners, but it's like, this is the reality. This is one of our people. Like, if you believe in liberty, if you believe in the founding principles, if you value your freedom at all, now, even if you're just a Christian, but you don't understand politics, like these are men being persecuted for their faith, and because they refuse to, convert to Islam, so this is a real thing happening on American soil. It's being suppressed. And we just happen to have a very famous prisoner who was witness to it. And he leaked that information out of the prison and was punished for it by over like a month in their deepest, darkest dungeon in solitary and pitch black. He said he was down there so long, he forgot what a human face looked like. Like if you're in pitch black for an extended period of time, I mean, you can lose your mind. Like human beings are not meant to be in those situations. They're not meant to be in cages. And they're certainly not meant to be in pitch black for extended periods of time. So this is an innocent guy who's being persecuted for his beliefs, for his faith, for a number of reasons, but mainly because he had the courage to speak out. And so our goal here is to create the support that is needed to fight the fight, because the judge in Schaeffer's case, and this is a big part of why we're doing this campaign right now, is that the judge in Schaeffer's case, one of the judges, ordered that all that evidence, that exculpatory evidence, to be released. And so,
wow.
so now that evidence has been ordered to be released, we want to actually get it released. Angela can talk a little bit about what that process has been like so far. She knows more about that.
Yeah, I want to do that, but before we do that, I want to, and you were apologizing for sharing, that visual of being in that prison and seeing something terrible like that. I don't think that's something people need to hear. Just like you said, this is one of us. This could happen to any of us. And I've watched old videos of Schaeffer on YouTube as he's speaking in town halls and whatnot. This is a very gifted communicator, someone who did do and probably would have done great things politically and could have really, and still can, once he gets out, still can have a great impact. But before we get on to talking about really the current status of the case and what the next steps are, I do want to play the song and play the video. So let's do that right now. This is the Persecution of Schaeffer Cox by Jordan Page.
So you finally hear my pleas through these walls, from my knees, and these walls stretch out like an ocean, like a tree. Haven't I given all? Here I stand, ere I fall. Someday soon I'll be free. What a day that will be. No, the war's already won. The lies are scattered and undone. Now there's only time between me and what is mine, and the truth will shine through in the end. Until then, didn't I give it all? I will stand. Someday soon I'll be free. What a day that will be. Change my fate. Dear God, I'm not too late. Haven't I given all? Here I stand, here I fall. I am you, and you are me. We are one, don't you see? 'Cause I was made for greater things. Dungeons have made many kings. One day soon I will be through the veil. Wait for me. One day soon I will be through the veil. Wait for me.
The first time I heard that, Jordan, you sent it to me probably a week ago or 10 days ago, something like that. And it moved me, knowing Schaeffer's story. And as you just talked about, the conditions he's living in right now, it's unimaginable. It's not something that any of us sitting outside here with our freedom, living in supposedly one of the freest countries in the history of mankind, can even imagine, could even put ourselves into those shoes. I just want you to one more time before we move on and talk about the appeal process and what's going to happen going forward. Where can people buy the song and all those details?
Sure. Well, the number one place we want to send people is to freeschaeffer.com, because the video is there. It's embedded on the homepage, and there's a link to purchase it through CD Baby, which is my distributor. We like the foundation will see the most funds through that purchase link. But if people's preferred platforms are iTunes or Amazon or Google Play, it's there as well. I mean, it's basically on every major download digital distribution outlet there is. So it's widespread. You can also find it at my website, which is jordanpagemusic.com, and the video is there. There's links there. So it's very easy to find now, and the video is obviously on YouTube as well.
And Angela, if you could share really what are the next steps in this case? I know Schaeffer has a blog where he's able to sort of, some of the letters that he writes are able to get out and get communicated where people can read it on his blog. And I've been reading recently some of the updates in the case, but what's the next step? What's the next possibility for his appeal?
Well, one of the next steps we're really hoping for is to find a filmmaker. So, friends and friends of their friends, if anybody knows of someone who is willing to make a movie about Schaeffer Cox, send them our way, freeschaeffer.com. All the contact information is there. Like Jordan said, the judge did recently order that the exculpatory evidence, a lot of it be released. There's over 500 pages, and the FBI has released a little over 200. So they're really taking their time and dragging their feet. But in August 2017, one of the long charges was dropped called solicitation. And the panel of 3 judges decided that Mickey Mouse was not a threat. They're not in danger. And they literally used that term. They literally decided that since Mickey Mouse is a fictitious character,
Right.
that he can't be harmed. So that's their reason for dropping solicitation. So most normal people can say, how bizarre is that?
Mhm.
No kidding. But there were no identifiable targets. So solicitation was dropped, and through this through the judge ordering this other evidence to be released, we're hoping that conspiracy can also be dropped. So it's kind of a long process, and we don't really have a time limit on that. But either way it goes, whether conspiracy is dropped or not, he will be resentenced sometime this summer, based on the dropped solicitation charge. So that's kind of where he is, working on his case, working on the FOIA case, Freedom of Information Act, really just trying to get the information that was withheld. And I like to tell people, even the prosecutors knew Schaeffer Cox is innocent. That's why they hid the evidence, because they knew they would lose. And that's why they're resisting now, because it's forcing the truth out. And one thing Schaeffer's always said, when the truth gets out, so will I.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's such a broken system. I mean, I'm not really probably the audience listening to this, or you guys obviously, but so many people in the United States think that the criminal justice system, if someone's innocent, then the facts will get out, and everything will be laid out in court, and they'll be set free.
yeah.
That's never the case. As soon as the prosecutors have the path that they want to take forward, as soon as they see what they think happened, they don't care about truth. They don't give a shit about any truth or any facts that are out there. They're going to push. They're going to do whatever they have to do to get that conviction. And it's just it's disgusting. I mean, I see it every week. I talk about cases like that on this show. It's
Well, even
crazy.
one thing Steve Scrocky, the prosecutor, said at the trial, in quotes, is that because Schaeffer Cox believes God's law is above man's law, he is beyond rehabilitation and deserves a longer sentence.
What?
So that was a pretty, yeah.
So because
was
he's
a pretty-
Christian, pretty much? Is it?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
He said belief in man's law above God's law, and with belief in a religion is beyond rehabilitation.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So you said he's going to be resentenced coming up here this summer. Is there any chance that his sentence gets reduced there? Is there any optimism for that?
Well, we're hoping for a miracle. I'm hoping that the conspiracy charge gets dropped before that, and he goes to get resentenced. They would have no reason at all to keep him. So it's really hard to know exactly or project what they would do, or if the sentence would be less. There's just no way to really know. Hopefully it would, but
So with the song being released, with the funds from the song going towards Schaeffer's defense, are there any other funds, any other ways that, but buying the song is great. I think everyone should do that, obviously. But are there other means, other mechanisms for people to contribute?
Absolutely, yeah. People can go right to Schaeffer's website, the freeschaeffer.com, and join the email list and get regular updates, and they can donate directly to the defense fund from there. So that is absolutely something that we're encouraging people to do, not just buy the song. Yeah, the song, provided if it goes viral, like we're hoping that it will, that will generate a lot of funds for the legal defense. But we are encouraging people to go and donate larger amounts than $1.25 or whatever the song's being sold for. But to donate larger amounts right to the defense fund, which you can do on the website. There's also a change.org petition to have him released that's on the site as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I'll embed all of that on the show notes page as well. So, but before I let you guys go, if you just want to give any closing words or anything else you want to you talk about that we missed here.
Well, I'd like to encourage people. Schaeffer's case is so diverse. It's beyond political beliefs. It's beyond religion beliefs. It doesn't matter what religion you are or what political belief. it's an international human rights issue. He's in a prison that is black site. It's got all kinds of torture methods, and not even subtle, just outright torture methods. The guys in there are being starved to death. They have scurvy. Schaeffer has scurvy, and some of the guys have beriberi. Those are malnutrition, starvation diseases. Schaeffer's been in situations where they've done extreme temperature deviations, where the floor is so hot he can't even touch it with his feet, and then they'll deviate it to freezing cold, and even the water in the toilet freezes. And then they have done sleep deprivation, where they wake them up every 30 minutes nonstop for days at a time. While he's in the CMU, he can't touch his mother or any visitors. So when his mom visits, he can't even hug his mother, and that alone is human torture. So I would just encourage people, you can read all about the CMUs on the website, and you can just Google it and search about it. But it's modeled after Chinese thought reform, and it's the international human rights issue. It's terrible.
Yeah, if that's not cruel and unusual punishment, I don't know what is. It's torture.
It's also out of the oversight of the U.S. Congress. It's not congressionally approved.
How is that possible? I mean, how do they get away with that?
Yeah,
Because people don't pay attention, because people are generally asleep and don't know. And I've been one of those people, so I know that that's true. You know, there was a time in my life where I could have cared less what was going on. I thought that people that were protesting things just had nothing better to do. You know, I was that in the dark until I woke up and realized what was really happening. And you know, being a person of moral character, I decided to, you know, take a stand. And that Pendulum song that you mentioned earlier was the first song that I wrote to that effect, and it, you know, set me on that path. So everybody has their moment where they realize that they can't just sit still and be silent. You know, they can't hide. You know, I have another song where I say, ignorance won't save you from the fight, because the fight's coming to you. You know, like you can ignore the state for as long as you want until they won't let you ignore it anymore, because they're not going to ignore you. Mm-hmm. So, and you know, Schaeffer is a prime example of someone who has been completely railroaded, framed, and the prison system was essentially weaponized against him. And they've traumatized his family on a number of occasions. I mean, the deeper you get into this case and what actually went down, the more horrific it is. And Schaeffer is a good man, a virtuous man, a righteous man, and needs to be set free. So the more public support, I mean, why we're doing this, John, is to get public support. There's very few forces on earth that are as powerful as public opinion. And the more people know about Schaeffer and his case, the more people are going to demand that he be set free, you know, faster. So it needs to happen. He must be free. And that's why we're here.
Well, I want to thank you both for everything you're doing. And if there's anything else that I can do or we can do at Lions of Liberty to help to raise awareness for Schaeffer's case, please just let us know.
You just share the video and share the website, freeschaeffer.com, and share the video and just help us get the story out, buddy, which you're doing right now. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
All right. So that'll be a cut right there. All right.
Angela, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to talk over you just then. I didn't realize you were talking.
No, you did perfect. Perfect.
Okay.
I wouldn't change nothing. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it was a great interview. Yeah. Sometimes with two guests, it's hard to, I want to make sure that you guys get equal time, but yeah, I think things went well. You guys
awesome.
Agree.
Oh, and I always like when Jordan talks, so it was perfect.
Well, very cool, guys. This will air this Friday, so I'll send you all the links and everything. I'm excited to get it out there. I'm excited to see the feedback it gets. So,
well, provided Facebook is working by Friday, we'll be posting it.
Yeah, really, it better be working by Friday. The weirdest thing, so Facebook and Instagram, obviously, some of the stuff they're doing censorship-wise is terrible, but at the same time, you kind of need to be on them. But they're also two of the buggiest websites out there, but you have to use them. It's like they're just messing with us. It doesn't make any sense.
Unbelievable.
Oh, what is your name? John?
John. My last name is Odermatt.
Okay. I was going to tell you that I run Schaeffer's website and the blog. So
Okay.
I get the letters and I put them on the
Okay.
blog for him.
Okay,
And I run
cool.
his Facebook page, Schaeffer Cox at Schaeffer's Angels.
Okay. Yeah, well, I will. I'll link to. I mean, the original show notes page that I did for this had a lot of information. I'll repeat a lot of that same stuff on this one as well, since I think this will have a wider reach. But yeah, I'm excited to see how this does.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.
All right.
Now, John, do you want me to send you the YouTube link, or do you want me to send you a link for the actual video file?
Probably the actual video file, because that'll be easier for me to cut in rather than.
Okay.
Yeah.
Done.
Is that cool?
Expect that in just a little bit.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys. All right. See ya.
Thank you, Angela.
Okay,
See ya.
bye. Thanks.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode with Jordan Page and Angela Clemmons. This case, this Schaeffer Cox case, if it doesn't get you just straight up fired up and angry about what's happened to this young man, or I guess he's an older man now. He's been in prison, I think, for 8 years. Crazy. In a black site prison. Being treated like this country treats terrorists. He's being treated like he's in Guantanamo Bay, but he's in the middle of the United States of America. It's truly insane. And if the American people knew that this happened and knew that this was the case, there would be an uprising, I really do believe. If they knew that this could happen to an American citizen, there would be an uprising. But America can know. And they can know if we make this song go viral. Culture influences so much. Culture is so important. And that's why I love what Jordan Page does with his songs and the lyrics for this song, the beat. I love every aspect of this song. It really strikes a chord. And especially when Jordan's telling that story about being on the phone with Schaeffer in jail, playing this song, it's just, it makes my eyes well up with tears just thinking about that raw emotion, thinking of that picture. I just really want to reinstate again, there were no ads on this episode. I'm not going to talk about joining the Lions of Liberty Pride or anything like that at all. Just please go to the show notes page, lionsofliberty.com/FF167. There'll be a link there that will take you to buy the song. There'll be links there to learn about this case. Please do that. Please share this episode. Please share this song. Please share the video as well. Let's make a dent. Let's change the world. Let's free Schaeffer Cox. Guys, come on. Step up to the plate. This is John Odermatt signing off. Always remember to keep your head up and the fires of liberty burning.